All right, welcome to the Stampscapes test lab. We have a full-size piece of the aged foliage pre-printed stationery paper here, and I've folded it in half, and I intend to make it into a horizon card. So a horizon card is just where you're taking advantage of the fold of the card, like this, the inner fold, and this is going to represent for the most part, things that are on the flat horizontal plane, and the objects from here up are going to represent objects that are taller and start at the horizon line here, the fold line within the space here. All right, so I've grabbed a few different colors that are somewhat similar to the foundation whatever color scheme of the piece in both colored pencils and acrylic paint pens. And we're going to start with that. We might move out into other tones, but I need to see how this is going to look before I investigate other colors. Okay. All right, so this image right here is going to be used as my kind of I don't know, a little bit of a like a rise from here where we start the vertical imagery. And let's see, you can start with whatever you want. I'm going to have some other rocks down in this area. I guess I'll start with this one here first. Then we'll add in some of our bare trees like that. Is it the winter ash? I suddenly forgot the names of everything. I've been thinking about all kinds of other things. All right, so let's go like that. I'll try to get it as much on the horizon line as possible. I guess it's not the horizon line, but the fold line again. A lot of times it does represent the kind of the horizon line if you're doing like a reflection card and it's like the ocean or something like that. But there, you got that like that, okay. It's a little bit high, so it wasn't great in my aim there, but so be it. And then we're going to add in these trees, like about like so. We'll add one here, and then we'll add another background one over here. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Actually, I was going to do this one, now I think about it. I was going to do this one in the distance, and I was going to use the Art Foamy one here as a really huge one. Or should I go with the smaller ones? Maybe I'll go with the smaller ones here. The two winter ash. I'm standing up to get leverage on this large stamp and just allowing whatever my weight and gravity to transfer the impression, the ink, because this is printer inks that we're stamping on top of, so sometimes it seals some of the pores, and it's not quite as porous as just a bare piece of paper. So keep that in mind. So stamp and hold a little bit longer than you normally would, with a bare piece of cardstock. All right, let's see. I find a acrylic block. And I'll just use my large acrylic block again. I have acrylic blocks with some have been layered or applied with tack and peel, and some have not. Your bare rubber ones go with a tack and peel. This is a temporary adhesive mounting system. Okay, now this one right here will go in the background, like about like so. That one I kind of held for a little bit less time. It came out pretty dark, but sometimes it, you know, if you lift too early, it might have a bit of a resist, and then, I don't know, it comes out 20% less, you know, dark than you anticipated. So keep that in mind. Okay, so this right here, we have all these flowers down here, so I don't see it as an opening. You know, I usually have some kind of pathway or something like that leading into the background, but this one's going to be more of like a, oh, I don't know, like a secret garden type of thing, you know? I don't know, that type of imagery. Okay, let's see here. Let's get some more rocks down here. I should have put a little bit more pressure on the side. My rock stamp didn't quite fit this, and it was hanging off, and it didn't give me a good impression there on the side, but no matter. As someone said, rubber stamping is fun art or something like that, not, I don't know what they called it, not fussy art or something. All right, here's some smaller rocks in the distance, like about like so, and then we'll add another cluster of them right down here. Something like that. I could do more down here too, but let's go with that. All right, so this is what we're kind of looking at right now. In terms of our fold, okay? And let's see here. That deer might be a little bit too big now. It wouldn't have been too big had I used the Art Foamies version, where this tree would have gone way up here. But now let's go with the smaller version of it. So I could stand, you know, somewhere right here on that slope. And we'll do something like this. Maybe I should have stamped my little hill, rolling hills there. A little bit lighter. We'll see how dark this deer comes out on here. It's dark enough. It'll become a little bit lighter though with as it dries. Okay, so let's see if we need to do some additional texturing in here. I think so. Let me grab my, where is it? This could be a little bit more of like a flat ground type of thing. You can even make it water or something like that, but I'm going to make it grass on the interior in here. So let's use some of this sedge filler stamp. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. You see how it's getting a little bit thicker on the edge there. Maybe I'll take a little bit of ink off. But we'll blend this in more as we add in some additional tones in here, okay? Tones and texture, okay? So there's my grass. And let's see here. I'm filling in a little bit of space right there because I didn't stamp it low enough like that. Ideally, I'd want this right on that crease, but I was about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch off or so, almost 1/4 inch in some areas. And again, I don't worry about that type of thing. Because I know that, when I do that, I have things like these filler stamps like this, or texture stamps. My little rock texture right here is really perfect for making transitions right here. So I didn't fill anything in right here, so I'm just going to fill in a little bit of this rock, tiny rock stamp right in here. And it just, see that area right in there got a little bit heavy, so you just kind of add in additional texturing in there. I don't have to get so close with that sedge filler stamp, so, because I can come in here with this rock texture and see how I'm filling in this little area down here. And it doesn't look perfect right now, but I haven't done any coloring on here at all, which, does additional incorporation of imagery, textures, etc. This is just like the foundation for a lot of other techniques to come. Okay, let's see. I think that is mostly it for our stamping right in here, okay? Now, this is going to be the thing that's going to really kind of render this and give it the character that we're going after, okay? So a lot of times people kind of are confused about lighting in scenes, okay? So we have this area in here, and let's say this is grass or something like that right in here. And we have our rocks right in here. For the most part, it's going to be lighter in the middle, and it's going to transition out to a little bit more darkness. It doesn't have to move out to black or anything like that, but it'll be a little bit lighter in here. And then what I do is I just add in shadows where my objects are. So there'll be a little bit of darkness going across here. So it'll go from light, darker, lighter, and the darker here, and then lighter down here, okay? But like I said, for the most part, it's lighter in here. But then you just add in your shadows where your objects are, and that'll break up this one area, like a spotlit area, okay? Now, how do you do that? Okay, now, like I said, I can go in here with, maybe I'll go with the green tones or something like that. But I'm going to add in some of this pink too, because we need to incorporate some of that tone in here. And plus the foundation itself is pink-ish, okay? So here we go. All right, so when you start adding in your tones like this, keep it light, okay? Now, you don't have to be doing this with colored pencils. You can be doing it with Copic markers, but what you do is you just go with a really light-toned alcohol marker if you're going to do that. Now, it doesn't mean you can't go with darker ones, but you just keep it light in the beginning, okay? So you bring everything into focus just nice and slowly so that you have control over your process. And that's kind of what people don't kind of get sometimes in the beginning if they're thinking about lighting, okay? Or they just work on one object at a time. I'm seeing this as like a whole, okay? This whole area. So I'm kind of addressing that accordingly, okay? So remember, like at the base of these objects in here, I'm making it a little bit darker. And the areas that are going to be a little bit lighter, I'm just doing like a, I don't know, barely visible application of this color. It doesn't mean that that's all I'll ever do, but that's what you start off with for complete, I don't know, whatever command of your application of shadow and color. So in other words, instead of just coloring some area, what you're doing is you're also lighting it because you're leaving areas just the color of the paper for the most part. You might be putting a little bit of this tone over it because we want to make it, in this case, green. But you're just doing a very light application of it. All right. And it's like, well, how dark do you make it? Well, with this one, you just keep it all light. And then at the base of some objects, you just put a heavier coating of it. So like at the base of the rocks, not the base of the rocks, but where the rocks meet grass, you just put a little bit of a heavier touch. And that's all you do. You leave it like that. And then, you know, when we get into some other tones, if we decide, hey, I want a little bit more of this color, then you just go back and add more of it, okay? But see, now we've introduced some of this green, and there's some of these greens over here. It's not the same tone of green, but it's within the same family. But let's move into some of this little bit slightly warmer green. It's more of like an olivey green, but, you know, here's a little bit more of a yellow green here. That we see in here. You know, you don't have match colors. Like I don't have like the exact same colors, you know, that are in this. But maybe I can use 2, 3, 4 colors to get a little bit closer to that incarnation of that inherent tone that's on the paper. Okay, now here's where you kind of have to start thinking about it too. If you want to retain some areas of light, then remember when you get into that second, third, fourth color, remember to retain some of those lighter areas. You could get a little bit of a touch of this warmer green in there. But remember, don't color in the whole thing. Retain some of those lighter areas within the space and then kind of utilize your darker, you know, each additional tone, layered tone, kind of, I don't know, whatever. You don't have to relegate it to just only the shadows. It's like, hey, I want a little bit of that warmer tone in the lightness, then add it. But I largely kind of add this into the darker areas for the most part and make those areas a little bit richer and a little bit darker. All right, so you can see this right here. Can you see this little oscillation of light? You know, we have, it's already inherent in the hills there where it's lighter than darker than, you know, darker like that. Dark, light, dark. And there's like a couple little touches of light up there, but here's where this whole area is that we've defined ourselves. It goes darker, lighter, and it's a little bit darker, lighter, darker, lighter, darker, lighter, like that. All right. Okay, let's see. Let's move into, let me see if I have like a darker green somewhere. Yeah, here we go. There's a little bit of a darker green. So we've moved through, not all these tones. I don't think I use this lightest one, but you're kind of going like this, you know, light, medium, darker, somewhat. Okay, now this one right here, I'll kind of add it into my darker areas within that form. Oh, okay, so here's, you know, I can create some shadows too, you know, created by my trees. There's not very much room for it. But I'm kind of adding that little dark thing. I'll add it in black as well when I get to that. Okay, so see this right here, right at the base of some of these rocks. I'm putting it in some of the rocks too, so it's not like, you know, I'm kind of being super careful about my application of this. Like one of these rocks got completely green down there. But no big deal. Okay, so see this? I'm putting this right at the base of those rocks, like that. And then you kind of transition it into lighter. So it's going from darker, and then it moves out. It's a lighter application of it. You see, you kind of put this darkness right at the base of your objects like that, and it really starts to, it gives your objects some visual weight in the scene like that. It seems like they're sitting in the scene a little bit more. Okay, let's do a little bit of a darker edge right in this area. Okay, now I'm going to add this into my darker kind of zones within that, that textured grass area. So it's like an application of it, kind of in the wide open instead of at the base of objects. Okay. So it looks like I'm applying a lot of this, but it's like with a very light touch. It's like this, as opposed to full application like that. So I might be getting like a little bit of a, I don't know, like a 3% application of that tone of green, darkness of green, with every pass here. I don't know, maybe it's like 1% actually. So it just gets a little bit darker with each pass. All right, so see, this is how it's looking like. It's looking kind of real three-dimensional like this when you have it kind of folded like that. It's really fun to do these. Types of, I don't know, whatever, folds, illusion, pop-up style illusion techniques. Just simply taking advantage of the inside of your card base, your folded card. Okay, this is going into black, so getting a little bit darker in the shaded areas of our design. Kind of defining my shadows a little bit more. And this is where the rocks really feel like they're entering the, they're set into the surface when you use the same color as you did with the color used in the impressions, in this case black. But I'm just using a gray version of it, okay? But it's a lot more integrated now. Your objects are integrated tonally. All right. Now I want to do something here that I don't know, it's something I do quite often. I'll use like a blue or something like that in some of my lighter areas. Not, but I still want it light, but I just feel that like this color of blue, this like jewel toned turquoise color, aquamarine or anything like that, kind of a light blue. It could be, with your markers or whatever you want. But if you just kind of add that in, it just kind of, it feels a little bit more full to me. Okay, something like that. All right, now I did say that I'm going to have to use some of this pink in here. I'm going to bring some of this pink. There's already the pink in there, so it's not white that we stamped on, but I just want to incorporate the colors of, the surrounding area a lot more. I'm not bringing it into the heaviest of green applications in there, but see, I can even add this into some of these rocks a little bit. Here's this ridge top up here. But I don't know if you could see that right in here. There's little tinges of this pink within this space. All right, so let's move on to some other media here with the green. So this is like spring in here, so I want to get rid of these kind of winter trees like that. So with bare trees, and the availability of things like acrylic paint pens, you can really kind of add all kinds of different types of looks, with the ability of opaque media. So back in the day, we were using dye-based inks, and then people started doing a lot of alcohol inks with Copic markers specifically. But I saw those ones come out about 20 years ago. But before that, it was all dye-based markers. But okay, both of those are transparent media. Okay, they're see-through. Acrylic paint is a little bit more opaque. It's not as opaque as I'd want it to be. It's still a little bit translucent, but it's a lot more opaque than your clear media, such as dyes and alcohol. So we can do things like this. You bring trees, bare trees to life, and you can do it in any kind of color scheme that you want, which is really fun. So I'm bringing some of that green from down in here. There's a little bit of that green kind of up there. And you really customize your scenery, your trees, your deciduous trees especially. And it could be evergreens too, that you can do this on. But right here I'm doing these kind of leaves right here. And what I'm doing is I kind of cluster it. I don't put it like evenly everywhere, okay? So you can see that's a lot lighter green there. That's when it's been freshly applied, but then it kind of soaks into the paper. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll also bring some of this, a little bit more of like a sparkly warmth into this area down here, so it's not just all kind of a cold surface down here, even though I did use some of that warm green, yellow green colored pencil. All right, so see this down in here. And again, that's going to integrate a little bit better or more when it dries, you know, like I said, it becomes a little bit more transparent. It moves towards transparency. All right, that is green. Now let's move into some pinks. Let's go with the white first. I think if I put a pink dot over a white, we might be able to see it a little bit better than going pink with a white dot over the top of it. All right, you can play around with it. Try it both ways. Okay, so hopefully you can see that there a little bit on this pink. So the concept here with this white is there's like these blossoms, like spring blossoms in the tree. And again, I'm kind of clustering this, some of these dots in here. It really brings these trees to life, and it gives them some character. All right, so see that right up there. And those little trees, you know, when they're blossoming, those blossoms drop on the ground. So you can kind of cluster that a little bit here and there. And maybe down here, these might represent little clusters of wildflowers or something like that in the meadow. It can also just be like little, whatever, glistening dew in the morning or something like that. It just kind of wakes up this area down here with a little bit of texture and contrast. Now, this is one of those times when I really wish these pens were quite a bit more opaque, but there are some that I found. There was this one brand that was really fantastic, super opaque, but the paint was too thick, and if you had these pens sitting around for any length of time, all that paint dried on the surface here. So some of these companies, they find like I don't know, the safe zone where it's like the paint is a little bit watery, but it doesn't dry and clog on your pens, so you can use them for years. If you use them like me, if you're painting like rocks and using a huge amount of it, then maybe it doesn't last that long, but I never get any clogging. Okay, see that right there? Kind of has like a real three-dimensional look to it. Let's go with some pink. And this is where we bring that we incorporate the color scheme of the paper really into the objects now. Because, I mean, it's predominantly pink, right? That's the main tone, so I don't know, it makes it feel like the objects, the scene is really kind of a part of the paper when we do that. You can do it through color, you can do it through form, the shapes, things like that, textures. All right, now on some of these rocks in here, I'm going to bring a little bit more of contrast to the tops of them, okay? And I have this white pastel pencil. And I'm going to see if I can kind of lighten up some of these a little bit. It might not work. I might have to go to a white paint pen. Yeah, I might have to go to the white paint pen. As I move this around, I think I'm mixing some of the things down here, so this isn't getting quite white. I'm going to wipe that off a little bit. Sometimes if I go in with a acrylic paint pen over the pastel, it's like gets a little bit chalky and it clogs my tip here. So this is white. Again, we did use the thicker white. This one's a 3mm, so sometimes it's a little bit more watery because it's a fatter pen, so they need it a little bit thinner so it doesn't clog. So since right here, this is bringing in a little bit more contrast. Yeah, it's quite a bit whiter than the existing colors right here. So bringing these little highlights on tops of some of these forms. That's why we kind of left a lot of the rocks lighter on the top, right? We added that shadow at the base of them. So we add the shadow at the base, but then you can do this highlight on the top, so it's kind of like whatever, doing the complementary lighting effect. Light on the top, darker on the bottom. All right, so there's a little bit of that lightness in there. So hopefully it makes it look a little bit more dimensional. And you can do this with like a white gel pen or something like that, or these are acrylic paint pens, but these really are pretty fun pens to play around with and to utilize. I'd really recommend at least a white one. You can write on, darker things with it too. And it's, like I said, it's not super opaque because, again, they make it kind of a little bit more watery, but it's like opaque enough. All right, so hopefully those kind of stand out to you a little bit. And again, this is what it looks like. So hopefully they look you know, somewhat dimensional. All right. This little ridge up here, maybe I'll put a little bit of highlight on that. I'm just wiping off some of that chalk that got on the tip there, probably. All right. So let's see. Let's add on a little bit more atmosphere to this, like I always do. I probably need to. Okay, this is the second time I've used this cotton ball here. I think I could use it one more time. Usually twice, and my cotton ball's toast. It's too got too much ink on it. It's dried. I think this will be okay if I use it a second time. My white pad here is really, really dry. Okay, so don't use it like I'm using it. Your pad's like super juicy, probably. A lot of people don't use their white ink like I do, so I use it all the time. And when I ink this up, I'm going for kind of a medium dry inking, so I don't like fill it up like super thick with ink. And I use it with my cotton ball to get these kind of atmospheric little touches down here to make it look like fog or mist. Okay, so I'm going to add it in areas that are a little bit lighter. Okay. So this is another reason to leave certain areas light, because if you want to do things like this, it really makes it really easy to integrate. If I was adding this white pigment ink in an area like that, it's really going to stand out. But see this right here? I can add it in like that, and you can just barely see it, okay? But then what you do is you bring it into these little areas that are a little bit darker than it next to it. And see that right there? That looks like fog. Okay. And then see, I'm adding it in this lighter area right in here. But don't go like too nuts with it. Or I don't know. I mean, you could, but do it kind of methodically, though. See that right in there? That's in that lighter area. And I'm just kind of creeping it out into my the other areas right around it. Okay, so see this? I'm bringing it right here, and I'm creeping it out in here, which means I'm tapping it out like that. You want to kind of transition it. You don't want it the same thickness, so it's lighter here in the light area, and then I tap it over here with my drier cotton ball, and it's applying a lighter touch over there. Okay. So see that? It's real kind of atmospheric right in here. But see, leave some of these rocks kind of crisp so that this fog kind of contrasts against it texturally. So watch this, see right here in this light area, like that. I'm bringing it out in this rock like that, but I'll just stop it right there. So we get a little bit light, soft, and dark. Hard or sharper. This got a little bit heavy right here when I used my sedge filler. Remember that darkness right here? So I just lighten it up right there, and it takes care of that, you know. It takes care of a lot of my clunky kind of applications of color that aren't, you know, that weren't the best or whatever. So I don't need to worry about things like that when I have this, you know. So it just so this is like a sharp, a soft, light application. And remember my little pebbles right here? That's like a sharp, dark application of texture in there. Now I'm doing kind of the opposite. I'm doing a nice and light, soft texture in here. So it's like all of these objects kind of just start blending together really nicely, or it appears so. My applications weren't inherently so, but when I do this, in the end to complement, like I said, the tiny rock's small, it just, everything looks fine. See this right here at the base of my tree? See that right at the base of that tree? I kind of put a little bit of fog like that. Actually, there's a little bit of fog like right back in here too. See, there's this little bit of this lighter area on the slope. So you can kind of put a little bit of softer light in there like that. And then we'll do it right at the base of this tree here. It just kind of varies the the lighting on the tree. It's not just one uniform black now. Now it's a little bit more gray at the base. It looks like, you know, there's a different kind of atmosphere around the base, you know, i.e., you know, some suspended fog or something like that. I'm going to put this right on that horizon over here too. I think that looks pretty good. I wasn't planning on doing that, but I just kind of touched it a little bit with that, and I thought, let's go with that. So it's like lighting is coming over that top of that ridge or something like that. Maybe that distant hill is in some lightness. All right, that is that. Now, I think this is asking for some sort of quote stamp right up here, so I'm going to look at that. But let's take a look here and check this out in context like this. So you have this page like this, and you open it up like this, and you know, it kind of looks like, you know, somewhat three-dimensional in there. Like this. So we have this nice framing around it. Let me look for something to put up there, and I'll try to figure out what color that we're going to stamp it in. Maybe it'd be better if I stamp it in like plum or something like that than a black. So let's we'll figure that out here. All right. In the woods, we return to reason and faith. Let me do it in this sweet plum. If it isn't dark enough, it's this darkness right here. If it isn't dark enough, forgive my head. If it isn't dark enough, I'll just stamp it on a separate piece of paper and put it in there, kind of in a little bit of a frame, which usually looks better, but if I can get it just right inherently on the paper itself, I usually just go with that as my first choice, just to save time and just to be lazy. Okay, let's see. Maybe if I had a little bit of a darker pad, maybe I did, like a magenta or something like that. But let's see how this one looks here. If it's really light, it's not, that won't be good. But if it's kind of a medium, I think it'll integrate with this color scenario really well. And I think that looks pretty good. It looks like it's kind of like that color there, that vertical texturing in there. It's kind of like that. Yeah. This kind of is a little bit dark in there. Like if that wasn't quite so dark, it'd be better, but it's not too bad. I think it looks pretty good. I think it... I'm trying to imagine it in the black. I guess it'd look okay in the black too, but I think it looks a little bit better in this tone here. Let's see. What I was going to do, see on some of these little flowers here, we have this lightness right in here, and I'm going to add in some little bit of a like highlights on some of these leaves. or petals and leaves. And I think that will integrate it a little bit more, having some highlights like that. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. See these little highlights on those leaves? It just seems to anyway, it creates a little bit of a stronger relationship again with the rest of the scenery. Now they didn't do that on here because this is supposed to be stationary, and it's it's a background for the content of your letter that you're sending to someone. So they didn't want it so the objects to be so defined. But since we're doing this as a scene here, we're using it for a different purpose. So adding these little highlights into it kind of makes sense. And a few more highlights into my tree here. I didn't have so many of these, or I wasn't doing this before, but since we've added in like brighter tones in here, or lighter tones, it seemed like it can stand to go a little bit lighter in here. As far as contrast goes, so just a little bit of a lighter, little sparkly dots in here. All right, let's take a look. We'll see it in a folded card type of format. Someone opens this up like this. And what you do is you put something else out here. Now, it doesn't have to be black. Okay, I just use black as my card bases oftentimes. But on something like this, you don't have to go dark. I usually go black for my reflection cards. I was going to make a reflection card, but decided to go with a horizon card. But what you do is like, you can put like this quote out here again, and I would put like, I don't know, little like white and little pink little dots out here, like little petals or something like that. It was like maybe a white piece of paper or something like that. And then on the back of this, you do your writing dear whoever, love, whoever it is. But this is like your interior spread like this. So you give this to them like that. They open it up like this. And it really feels like a nice kind of pop-up right here. I think this scene would look cool just flat too, but you go like this and it adds a little bit of that extra kind of three-dimensional type of illusion like that sometimes, with that extra fold. Plus there's also this, that kind of that whole idea of that reveal that happens like that when they're opening something up. It's like opening up like a little present or something like that, where normally the reveal is someone taking something out of a card, out of an envelope, a card that you've sent to someone. So, it's a little bit of a different feel to it with something like this. You can also, I mean, in an open area like that, you could have written something as well. That'd be kind of cool to do a little bit of writing, or you leave this out of it and you can write down here. Or it can just be like a tree or something like that, and you can have this whole area to write in. I don't know, more of like a journal or something like that than a scene. But anyway, hope you like the card. And thanks as always for tuning into the channel and checking out the latest experiments.